Story News continues. We got Bill Wyatt on the phone. If you've been reading the Martinsville Bulletin here of late, Bill's been pretty active and writing some pretty interesting stories, and probably one that's getting statewide attention at this point is one on the priest here locally, the Catholic priest who's might be speaking out too much and making his bosses a little upset. Bill, this has been quite an interesting story.
It has. You were mentioning about, it's one of those stories that has legs for sure.
Yeah.
It was on the front page of the Roanoke Times today.
Okay.
And there was a station, ABC 8, I think, in Richmond, that came down and did a story here in Martinsville at the parish with some of the parishioners there.
Right. I'm going to flash you back to some radio days. Tell this story in a minute, if you could.
Tell it in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, the short story is this particular priest became vocal over the internet through the use of a personal blog about the Catholic Church dragging their feet as far as addressing the epidemic of sexually molested children and young adults.
Right.
And a lot of Catholics and a lot of people outside of Catholicism championed his cause. And a lot of people who were victims of this abuse found what he had to say very comforting and uplifting, and it sort of emboldened them.
Yeah.
And it angered the hierarchy. And so his immediate boss, which is the Diocese of Richmond, the bishop, put the clamp on him and basically said, stop it, take your blog down, don't do it anymore, or risk getting fired. And so there's your 60-second short story.
Gotcha. And one of the elements is he not signing the order because it's not in writing, or is he doesn't agree with the order?
That's an interesting thing. The first time he did sign an oral directive. And he said he was so scattered by the whole thing because they showed up unannounced, and he couldn't think it through.
Right.
But he said he's been talking to folks and had a little time to kind of think about this thing now. And so when they came and gave him a second directive, what they call an amended directive, they did the same thing. They came in and they verbally told him what he could do and could not do, and then wanted him to sign a statement that said that he heard them say it and that he would agree to it.
Right.
And so he basically told him, I'm not sure that I heard what you think you may have said.
Yeah.
But if I have a written copy, then there's proof. And so he just simply, he says, I'll try to follow what I think you've told me, but because there's nothing written there,
right,
then I'm not going to sign anything.
Right.
And so that's where it stands.
Do you check in with him like periodically? Like every day, or just to see what he's doing?
No. I do check with him, to see whether there's any updates or anything that's going on. But again, he's limited in what he's able to share or say.
Okay.
And it's the parishioners that just consider him their beloved priest, and those are the people that are really sharing the story with me, and the hardships that he's going through.
Locally, how much support does he have in the Catholic Church locally?
It's overwhelming. I mean, I'm sure it's like anything. There's not everybody is on board, but certainly the vast majority, without question.
Right. I spoke with Johnny Robertson on our show today, and I kind of said, this guy is wanting to speak out. Why don't you at least support that? And of course, Johnny Robertson, I think he's just coming back in from a tour or something. But I do think it's getting discussion in all walks of religious life around here about this. I mean, I had to be supportive, and at least in being able to express himself. We all don't like being muted, Well,
certainly, yeah. I mean, it's a First Amendment issue.
Yeah.
It really is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, he's got a real personal axe to grind because one of the most egregious things that he talks about is it was one of the most recognized cardinals in America that has been what do they call it, defrocked, I think. He
Right.
fired, basically.
Right.
And he was the one that ordained Father Mark. And so, he was personally acquainted with him, closely acquainted with him. He
Right.
wasn't abused by him, thankfully, but, so he has a lot of personal angst involved in this thing.
I got you. Let me ask you. I mean, one of the things people are saying, people are talking about all this writing you've been doing. I even had people in the Bulletin say that you're adding a bit of flair to the newspaper. Are you having fun?
I don't know the flair. What does that mean?
I think that sounds exciting.
Well, it's well, you remember from way back in the days. It's like where I would do commentaries.
Yeah.
It was important for me to write it down,
Yeah.
and because I wanted it to be said well,
Yeah.
or to be read well, and I've always had a fascination with wanting to write, and so I've been in radio, I've been in TV, I've not
Done
been
it
in
all.
newspapers, so I guess it's sort of the back end of my career. I'm getting started in it late, but I do love it, and I'm really enjoying it very much.
Yeah, and I can tell. I can kind of sense that you're like getting into these stories and so forth. And a lot of times we see them front page and center, like here Tuesday, we got the pre-story going on here, and I mean, it seems like you're writing a lot of interesting stories for them.
It's not difficult.
Right.
That's the thing that I mean, it's time consuming. It takes a lot of time to do, but they come very easy, and I'm proud to be able to do it.
I got you. And people keep giving you stories. I know you. People calling you all the time with new story ideas, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Is it an email or something where people can communicate with you? Because one thing I love about newspaper is y'all do have more time to delve into a story.
Well, that's the biggest difference. That's probably if you ask me what would be the one thing that I enjoy the most about it, it's about actually being able to commit the resource of time to do something, to do it well, and to do it right. And
you've been up to Richmond several times on the pre-story, right?
Yep, sure have.
Yep.
Sure have.
Yep. Is the diocese, are they easy to talk to, or do they want to brush you aside?
You can talk to their communications director, and they'll talk to you only when they want to.
Gotcha.
But they do so very pleasantly, I might say.
All right. Well, how do people get in touch with you?
The best email address would be bill.wyatt@martinsvillebulletin.com.
All right. And your next story is probably coming to you in the next 10 minutes. You never know, right?
You bet.
Right. Well, look, I tell you what, one of the things I support is newspapers. I do know that that they're going through a tough time right now, and I'm telling people the best thing you can do to support local media, and especially our local newspaper, is to pick one up. Go, whether you're at your local store or whatever, buy one, because that allows people like Bill Wyatt to keep going to Richmond and so forth. I fear the day that Mama Axton is reporting the school board meetings on Facebook. I'm scared of that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That it is. It's real key when you consider whether it's newspapers or whether it's what you do with television.
Yeah.
But people get angry with things they don't like, and they get oftentimes angry at the person reporting it, or the station, or the newspaper, or whoever. But if you consider for a fact, if you don't support it and we went away, you wouldn't get a story like Father Mark.
Yeah.
It would be nothing more than rumor and unconfirmed conversation.
Right.
And it's important.
Right.
It really is. It's important to a community.
You tell me one thing that's interesting about the Bulletin is they make you guys fact check everything. You've got to have 2 or 3 sources for just about everything you do. So it's a tough process, isn't it?
It is, and it has been a learning curve for me because with radio and with television, we don't go through that kind of a litmus test with everything that we do. But everything has to be sourced. It has to be properly background. It has to be researched, and you got to. When you report something, you don't editorialize it. You don't tell people what you think. Right. You tell people what the facts are, and you have to have have that information in order to do that.
Right, and I think we'll both admit that the Bulletin for ages has been the strongest at that. Yeah.
No question.
Right.
Love them or hate them, if you go through all the people who have written for the Bulletin over the years,
Yeah.
They all have that same ethic, journalism ethic, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be among them here today.
Right. Well, everybody's loving your stories. Keep giving them to us. And to me, it's like, what has he done today? What's Bill got in the paper today? So pick up on local Martinsville Bulletin. And I mean, you hear from two people that have probably been in this town longer than anybody reporting news that are still living. And we're saying the Martinsville Bulletin's got the strongest news. I'll say that, won't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right. So pick up a paper and keep them strong, because it keeps it strong. I still think $1.50 for as much information as you get out of this paper is pretty darn good. Yeah.
Well, it's not as cheap as it used to be, but then again, when you go get a hamburger at McDonald's, it's not as cheap as it used to be either.
Right. That's right. And then the sports page, I got it right here in my hand. The sports page is one of the best I've ever seen. And from a standpoint, you get local, and you get the national and the state stories, the UVA, the Virginia Tech. You get all of that, and I don't know how y'all do it. You got a NASCAR story here. It's strong coverage on sports.
But I give kudos to Kara Cooper. She's the primary person that does the sports for the Bulletin.
Yeah.
And she single-handedly does most of it. And she's a pretty incredible girl. Very talented.
Pretty talented. And I don't care. You can get all this on the internet. Where you see it in one swoop.
Right.
You don't have to click. You don't have to go all over the place to get it. You can get it in one hit, and that's one thing I still like about a newspaper. Is I can put it in my hand. I can switch the pages and check out the scores, and then I can check the TV schedule. What sports are going to be on TV tonight, all in one hit. And for $1.50, you can't beat it. And I can eat my lunch while I'm doing it. And I may be old school, but I still love old school. All right.
You're hired.
Okay, there you go. All right, Bill. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, Bill White. I love media. I love people in media, and he's done a great job on this pre-story. Check it out. You can also go to martinsvillebulletin.com to check out stories as well. We will be right back with the Crime Report.